Hello everybody and welcome to day 18 of Junk Journal July 2023. My name is Grace aka Ms. Paperlover. If you are new to my channel and have come here from say the Junk Journal July playlist, or even if you've randomly stumbled across me, hello and welcome. Now I am not going to explain what Junk Journal July is because we're already on day 18 of however many years this has been going. So if you, on the off chance you do not know, I imagine the majority of you do, but if you're completely unfamiliar with it, the first two links in the description box will take you to the playlist and to an info page to tell you all about it if you want to know. Now, day 18's prompt is favourite supply, which is a prompt that I think most of the Junk Journal July YouTubers have actually done before. It might have even been last year's Junk Journal July, but either way, I've done it before, so I wanted to try and do something a little bit different. So what I did is I asked here on YouTube and on Instagram what everyone's favourite supply was, so I could use your favourite supplies instead of my favourite supplies. Now, naturally, some people's favourite supplies are the same as mine, and I am going to be cheeky and include some of those too. But some people mentioned things that had just never occurred to me to use in my journal before, or I hadn't done it in so long, I completely forgot about it, or just never heard of it, and lots of things like that. I think there are only 2 or 3 things that I just didn't have and couldn't get hold of, but I will mention those later on, because I did think they were great ideas. I just couldn't include them this time and I wanted to tell you about them. So I'm not going to list all the supplies now at the beginning, I'm going to talk about them as I go through. So this first page I'm working on, you see I'm doing some stenciling and some stamping. Stenciling and stamping was suggested by quite a few people, very popular choice. But the thing I have stuck on the page there is part of a waxed paper brown bag. Now this was suggested by Second Verse Paper Studio, and I don't know if I've got the exact thing that you were talking about, because I don't know, it might be different, but this is from a takeaway food bag. It had some curry sauce in it, of all things, but it's waxed and it's a brown paper bag, so hopefully that's roughly the right thing. And I end up using this quite a lot in these journal pages. I also brought in here this doodling using Stabilo 68 markers. Now I've had these for years and pretty much never used them, but I think it was Rune X Heart who said they like to use these in their journal a lot, and I thought, well, I've got them, so let's give it a go. So I'm doing some very basic doodling. I will admit some of it I really didn't like that rose in the corner. I was like, oh no, I don't like that, so I am going to cover that up, but it's always fun to try these different things. Now this is very much an experimental page, and it's not my favourite that I've ever done in my journal, but you know, that's okay. Not every page has to be perfect and amazing and whatever. I saw some videos recently about how to create the perfect journal spread, and I was like, is there such a thing? Like, sometimes it's just fun to play around. It doesn't have to be perfect. But anyway, I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yum, but I like to feel quite free in not achieving perfection personally. Anyway, point being, after I stamped that lady, I wanted to have sort of scripty writing in the background, and I thought I'd try doing that with the Stabilo 68s, and you know, because I said I would use them, but it doesn't look great, does it? Let's all be honest, it doesn't look amazing. So what I end up doing with this page is covering it with a layer of tissue paper. Now, tissue paper was suggested by, hang on, I do have it on my list here somewhere, Lynette Griffin. Lynette's actual favourite way of using it is to scrunch it up and then have like botanicals on top of it. Now, I am going to do that exact suggestion in a minute, but as I had the tissue paper to hand, I thought, maybe we can tone down this page just a smidgy bit by having this layer on top of it, like mute it a little bit or something. Again, it still doesn't look great, but I'm going to keep coming back to it and working on it and seeing what I can do with it. Where the tissue paper kind of comes off the edge, instead of cutting it, I'm going to just fold the tissue paper back over, and then you kind of get quite a nice border, like a rough border of with lots of texture and things. And I'm using a Distress Collage in the matte medium one. I probably said that wrong, but that's what I'm using. And then on this opposite page is where I'm going to do the actual suggestion of the scrunched up and the botanical. I'm going to use a different medium for this, the same distress stuff, but this is the vintage collage medium. It has a lovely brown tone to give it that vintage aged look. I used a bit more water with this to thin down the medium a little bit, and I think that works a lot better because it makes it a little bit more see-through. You can see the text behind, and yeah, I think it does look a bit better. Sometimes I think I've been ruined buy these products, because I used to just use PVA glue and a bit of water and that worked just fine, but sometimes when you've got the quote-unquote proper products, you kind of get a bit caught up in using them sometimes when there are just simple things you can use instead. Side note, I apologise if you can hear my neighbour's dogs barking. Trying to record a voiceover when those dogs aren't barking is fairly impossible. They are very, very barky dogs. But anyway, so I then set those aside to dry. When they are dry, I take some heavy duty clips and clip them down because they do tend to curl at the edges when they've had a wet medium on them. Now, eventually they will uncurl as, the journal's shut, but it does make them a little bit hard to work on when they're curled up like that. So that's why I had the clips like that. Then I'm going to work on this little card. I'm going to use this as a little pull-out card, add extra little things to my pages. The paper is, it's from 6x8 Minte paper pad. I think it's called Grandma's Attic. Floral things, again, suggested by a lot of people. Floral paper specifically. I did write it down. I'm so sorry. I can't see it on my list here. But if you suggested that, here I'm doing it. Here we go. And then I grabbed another piece of that waxed paper envelope to make a little pocket on that page, and I'm going to decorate that with some more scraps of paper and bits and pieces. And then I am going to add this book page to add as a little pull-out to put in the pocket. Book pages was another thing that lots of people said was their favourite supply, and I understand because old book pages are just amazing. You can use them for all of the things. I am going to put some pattern paper on the back of it though, just to make it a little bit more sturdy. I think just the paper on its own would easily fall apart if you're taking it in and out of that pocket. Another favourite supply I'm going to add to this pull-out card, this is Jenny Wakefield's favourite supplies. They mentioned lace and pom-pom trim. Now I don't have any pom-pom trim, actually no, that's a lie. I know I have a scrap of it somewhere, but I could not find it. But I have oodles and oodles of lace, so that's fine. I had this really pretty sort of turquoisey lace, or sort of light pastel mint greeny colour, that I thought went lovely with the brown and blue that's going on this page, so I'm going to include that. I didn't love it straight on top like that, so I've grabbed something from my scrap drawer to do a little base for the lace. Ha! I rhymed. Here I'm going to work with some sprays and stencils. Who was it that Finny Zaril suggested these? Now, I have plenty of sprays and stencils, but I have this really bad habit of compartmentalizing my journaling. Like, sprays and stencils are for my art journal, and these supplies are for my junk journal, and these supplies are for my more scrapbooky journal, and I need to stop doing that. It's mostly subconscious I'm doing it, but it can't be completely subconscious because otherwise I wouldn't be able to talk about it. But anyway, what I did was, as you saw, I sprayed through the stencil to get that lovely pattern and then turned it around and stamped what was left on the stencil, and I think that makes a really, really lovely effect. I liked it so much that I actually grabbed something out of my scrap drawer to do it again. Here I'm going to add, obviously those pages are nice and dry now. Shaheen from SKH Lettering suggested leaves, and I love that. I'm always adding florals, but not leaves, so grab some of those. I'm going to add one here on top of that scrunched up tissue paper, as was suggested. I'm going to do a little strip of washi there just to pretend that's how the leaf is stuck down. I actually used glossy accents. But looking at that, I thought, I feel like that leaf is very, very vulnerable for getting broken. So I'm going to cover it up with a piece of slightly coloured vellum. It's like a sort of greyish brown colour. Admittedly, nobody suggested vellum. but it's one of my favourites and I needed it in that moment. So what I'm going to do is add some journaling. Well, it's cheating, it's actually some poetry. Writing that on with a Pigba Micron. It's one of the few pens I found that actually works really well on top of vellum. But yes, going to write that and then tip that in over the top of the leaf. So it's protected, but you can still see it, and you can also like open it up and look at it properly if you want to. I do add some double-sided tape to that as well as the washi tape to tip it in, just because that's an older washi tape and I do not trust it to hold that piece of vellum for very long. It can become unstuck after a while. So adding the double-sided tape to give it that little bit of extra strength so that it lasts a much, much longer time. Here I was looking again at that opposite page and still not happy. So I thought maybe we could make it a little bit interesting by actually ripping away some of that tissue paper, and I do quite like that effect. So definitely going to be using tissue paper more often in my journal because, again, I've had it around forever. I use it for packaging in my shop, but why don't I use it in my journal? I don't know. It's just never occurred to me. So big thank you to Lynette for suggesting that one. On my large card here, I'm adding my journaling straight down onto the pattern paper. I realise some of you might be thinking, you can't read it very well, but that's not important to me. I don't really want anyone reading it apart from me anyway, and I really just wanted that image of writing in the background. Oh, here I am, just ticking off how many other people's favourite supplies that I'd used so far and what I had left to do. So I pulled out my corner punch because 2 people actually talked about how much they love their corner punch, so I had to include it, of course. Then I'm going to work on this smaller card, adding all sorts of little bits of decoration, types of things that were suggested by a lot of people, pretty stickers, pretty scraps of paper, all sorts of lovely little things like that. And I've added a photo here that I printed on my HP Sprocket, which is related to the journaling that I've done on the larger card. It's a picture of a rose that we have in our garden, and the rose is, it's a what's the name? David Austin rose, and it's called Grace, and that's my name, so obviously it has to be my favourite rose, and it's the prettiest, obviously. I'm really proud of myself that I managed to bring back those Stabilo 68s on that card. You may have seen I used it to sort of highlight the word stickers that I'd added on. Those were the things I really thought I was going to struggle with because I just never used them, and I'm proud that I managed to. Here I'm going to decorate the reverse of that card using bits and scraps of leftovers from people's favourite things that I've used. One thing that did kind of make me giggle, it was Jean Hayes who suggested coffee dyed paper, and I know lots of people love that. Now, I generally do tea dyed paper, just I prefer it personally, you know, totally personal thing. Could I find any? I could not find any. I had like 4 scraps of it I found in my scraps box, so I'm using those on this page. I could have made some coffee dyed or tea dyed, but I just couldn't find the time before I needed to do this video. And here I am bringing in the Stabilo 68 again to do a faux stitch border. Also added some lace trim at the bottom, and I'm also going to add it to make a little sort of loop to like a little thing to pull out the card with, and adding the leaves again because I pulled them out of my like dried and pressed floral storage, and I thought we can include them somewhere. I think it was at this stage that I realised I only had one thing left that somebody had suggested that I had yet to use, which was Des Tandola mentioned rub-ons, or transfer stickers some people call them, and I was more than happy to use these because they are one of my absolute favourite supplies. You'll see in a minute I have a big book that's absolutely full of them. I am a little bit obsessed, and I use those to kind of not fix but just make that page a little bit better. Now, while I do that, I did want to mention those couple of things that people mentioned as favourite supplies, but I couldn't include here. One thing, OCA Nina mentioned using food wrappers, especially pretty ones that you get on like sweets or chocolate or whatever. Again, great idea. And I know you might be thinking, how could you not get a food wrapper? But it's just, recently had surgery. I've barely left the house. I have to be very careful about what I eat, and I just couldn't find any pretty food wrapping anywhere. So, but I will do it at some point. I have actually done it once, but a long time ago. And the other one was my good friend Maddie, who talked about, you know, when you get like really nice takeaway coffee cups, like decorated ones, usually at places like Starbucks and such. Maddie takes off like that top layer of the cup and then uses that pretty pattern in her journal, which again, I thought it was a fantastic idea, but didn't have anything to use. This time of year, if I'm going to a coffee shop, I'm getting a frappuccino or something else cold, and those come in plastic cups. So we're going to have to wait for autumn winter for me to try that idea, but if you have something you can use for it, then I highly suggest you try it out because I think it's a great idea. So I'm going to use, this is just a piece of packaging from my scrap drawer that I have used just to make a little sort of pocket or tuck spot to put in that really big card. That really large sticker I added, I really wanted to include that on the card but couldn't make it work, so I had to include it somewhere. I thought it was so pretty. I'm using red line tape to stick that down just because it needs to work hard being a pocket that small holding something that big. Going to finish off my page here with a few little stickers here and there, and then I think that is, yeah, those are my pages. So thank you so very much for watching. Thank you to everyone who told me about their favourite supplies and suggested all these ideas. I really loved working with other people's favourite things. It was like a bit of a challenge, but I really enjoyed it, so I really appreciate you for suggesting those things, and I really encourage everyone else to give it a go. Like, ask your journaly friends what their favourite supply is, give it a go, or maybe some of these ones in this video you haven't used. It is fun, I promise you. So there we go, that is going to be it from me. Thank you so much again for watching. Please check out the links to the Junk Journal July playlist, and yeah, I think that's going to be pretty much it for me. Thank you, Meg, again for hosting this wonderful challenge. Please leave me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and tell me in the comments what your favourite journal supply is, and maybe I'll use it in a future video as well. So, okay, that's it. I am now going. Thanks again. Bye bye!